inches is basically what we can expect for the entirety of May. May averaging around 2.5 inches over all of the days combined, and we still have about 2.5 weeks to go. Those 3 days spread among Saturday, Sunday, and Monday for the most part here in Tampa. We got 1.62 inches of rain on Monday combined. That is enough for a daily record. Actually, 1.62, the confirmed number there on the screen. That beat the record set back in 1951 of 1.44 inches. The 3-day total again being at 2.39, and that comes awfully close to the May average here in Tampa of 2.6 inches of rain. We'll likely surpass that if we can get just a few more showers toward the end of the month, because I think over the next week we're going to be hard pressed to find any rainfall across the southeast United States. We have a bit of a dry spell on the way, and that's unfortunate because it's also corresponding with some very warm temperatures and a high pressure system that's not going to cool us off very much, not just with rain chances, but also with cloud cover for at least the next few days of your forecast. Here's what we've got with our 4Box live camera network out in downtown Tampa. Raymond James Stadium, Steinbrenner Field, the difference from today's view versus yesterday, just hardly any clouds on any of our cameras. As we look every which direction, we are completely dry across central Florida and a view of the beach. A lot of folks out there even enjoying the water right now. I think if I look to the bottom right of my screen, sometimes harder to tell, but some folks might be out there trying the water. It's relatively warm, closer to 80 degrees there right along the Gulf Coast. More folks were out there playing volleyball just about an hour ago. The heat is for real. I don't know if you've stepped outside this afternoon, especially over the last hour or so. We've really ramped up those temperatures. Here's how high we've been so far. 92 there in Wesley Chapel stands out to me. Lake Placid, Sebring, frostproof 92 and 93 degrees for an afternoon high temperature. Some of these are unofficial and could be even a pinch higher than what you see on the screen. Clearwater at 90, Newport Richey at 88, Brooksville at 91. Right this second, our sensors aren't too far off from our afternoon highs. In fact, some of those highs are rolling in right now. Sebring at 93 still, Bradenton 93 just being reported, Sarasota 85, Brandon 90, and Tampa just updating to 89 degrees. That's a brand new update there, so still getting warmer. And our friends farther to the north are also experiencing this heat wave here. Tallahassee, Gainesville, Jacksonville. A big area of high pressure is still ramping up temperatures to the tune of 4, 5, maybe 6 degrees warmer than what we experienced for highs yesterday. And that high pressure system will be cranking up the heat for the next 2 to 3 days of your local forecast. All those days with mostly sunny skies, similar to the icon there on your screen. And just your reminder, with the lack of cloud cover, because we have had at least clouds to block out that sunshine and give us some temporary shade from Mother Nature, the UV index is going to be on the high side for the next few days. So just to make sure you're taking that into account, especially if you're going to be on a spot like the beach where there's not a ton of shade to go around. If you don't bring the umbrella, make sure you're applying that sunscreen regularly, because unfortunately burns can take place in as little as 15 minutes or so in the conditions we have at hand. The 24-hour temperature change map telling the tale of the tape. Whenever this is a nice orange or red color, you know we are warming up very quickly, and this is speaking to our warming trend all around. Even West Palm Beach and Vero Beach over there at 5 degrees warmer right now than we were 24 hours ago. The same for Wauchula, that number bumping up to a 6-degree swing in the positive direction, and all of that is still accompanied with high humidity. It's likely what's making it feel a little bit worse for you than when temperatures are warm and it's nice and dry, and we've experienced some of those conditions before. Just go back a few weeks. It's not the same right now. The humidity with dew points in the upper 60s and low 70s is just making things feel a bit more sticky and making those temperatures feel a few degrees warmer than what we just saw there for our current temperatures and our afternoon highs. Here's the heat index, the dreaded heat index. I know a lot of us do not like this graphic, and I'm right there with you, but whenever we get to this time of the year, we typically have to use this more and more to get the point across. Those highs in the low 90s are likely feeling like the upper 90s, perhaps even the triple digits in a few spots with the very high humidity. Frostproof at 98, Lake Placid a 99-degree heat index, Sebring at 101. Now, Bradenton might have an error. That's likely a little bit hot. We'll look around Bradenton and still get that same picture there with Northport at 97, Tampa 91, similar to what we're seeing right now. Wesley Chapel, though, 98. Just a hot afternoon, and it's only going to get hotter from here. That ridge of high pressure we've been talking about, the upper level air feature that's providing us all the ingredients for this heat and the humidity, that's going to build and deepen into Sunday. In fact, 3 p.m. here on the screen Sunday afternoon. If anything, that high pressure gets even stronger, and that's going to be bumping up the heat even more. Tomorrow afternoon, we raise that high temperature about 1 or 2 degrees, depending on where you live. Upper 90s as you go east of I-75. In fact, Wauchula, Arcadia, Lake Placid, 97, 96 degrees is what you're looking at. Lakeland right there in the mix at 95. That is a bright red color there that we haven't seen very much of in the year so far, but get used to it because the stretch over the next 3, 4, 5 days or so will bring these highs back into the mid to upper 90s and keep us well above average. That black line is the forecasted high temperature as we move through the weekend and into the start of next week, end of next week, and also through that following weekend. The average temperature is outlined there with a white line. That's kind of in the mid to low 80s. We will be flying well above that mark all the way through that stretch for the next 10 days, and that goes well beyond the 7-day. And look at this, the next 5 days of rainfall. I wish I could show you this map and have more rain on the way. Another big round of showers, hopefully just rain and not thunderstorms so we can eat away at that drought. But unfortunately, this is what most of my forecast maps are looking like. The next 5 days of rain, exclusively isolated showers well to our north. Tampa, bone dry. And the next 5 days, this is hilarious. Hardly anything to see here. In fact, no more little splotches of showers moving into Monday and Tuesday. Models are tapping out on those chances, and we'll likely stick with mostly sunny skies during that same period of time. The Tampa Skycast moving into tonight, we'll get down to about 75, maybe 76 degrees for a low. It will be mild. It will also be humid, and that's how we're going to start things off heading into tomorrow morning. No showers to worry about, no patchy fog for your morning commute. Temperatures will be in the 60s and 70s with some cooler spots inland, warmer areas along the coastline because that Gulf water temperature is still relatively warm. The winds will be very light, 5 miles per hour or less for the most part. And your 7-day forecast popping up on your screen now, not a lot changing apart from the heat. 94 is as warm as we get. That's moving into Monday, but this forecast is subject to change. We could slide that heat a little bit closer to time, so don't be shocked if this weekend we get closer into the mid-90s. This mostly sunny trend stays with us into the middle of next week, and no significant rainfall chances are in the forecast for the next several days. So just make sure that you're finding ways to stay hydrated if you have to be outside, if you have sports practice, after school, or maybe you just want to go on a jog in the morning time. Try and move those activities into the morning or evening rather than peak heating hours. That would be mainly between 1 to 4, maybe 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The later you wait, the better things will get, but either way, it's still going to be warm or hot, regardless of when you decide to get those things done. We're going to play a little round of Guess the Sky Cam. Now, on your screen is a live camera from somewhere in the United States. This is directly relevant to the forecast for today, and I'll give you a hint. This spot is expecting some severe weather at some point this afternoon or evening. We'll take a deep dive into exactly where this is coming up after the break. We'll also look at the tropics, where the first tropical outlook of the year was issued today. I'll let you know how things are looking so far and my take on this season coming up. Welcome back. Now, we just have 17 days left in the Atlantic hurricane season, and I know nobody wants to see this, but the earlier we think and prepare about it, it helps dispel the fear leading up into it. And thankfully, at the beginning of the season, we typically see weaker storms rather than the stronger ones toward the peak of the season. That's mainly from August working into October. We got a taste of that last year with our strongest storms coming during that stretch, but 17 days until the official start of the Atlantic hurricane season, and today is the first day that the National Hurricane Center has put out their first tropical weather outlook. These are outlooks that they update multiple times throughout the day, I believe 4 times total, and what they do is show us the disturbances that they're tracking out there in the Atlantic, so that of course includes the Caribbean and Gulf, and additionally, if anything looks like it's going to develop, they will label that on a map and outline where that disturbance could be headed next. The first outlook was just placed out. These go out 7 days in advance, and you will be pleased to know that they are not expecting any cyclone development over the next 7 days. We were looking at very, and I mean very low-end potential down near Panama for the extended outlook, but that hasn't seemed to materialize, which is a good thing. I think that we keep things quiet for at least the next week, and as we'll explain in just a moment, the season will start to take a little bit more form as we get into June and July, and more of the synoptic patterns start to set up. To explain how these tropical outlooks work, you've probably seen these X's and circles on your screen before and wondered what in the world is going on. So I want to go through with you what these icons mean so that when you see them and we get our first disturbance somewhere out there in the Atlantic, you know what's going on and can at least understand this graphic a little bit better. That yellow X on the screen, that shows the spot, the center of where an area of disturbed weather currently resides. It then would be headed towards where the big yellow circle is. That's the region of possible development, where that has a chance to develop into a tropical depression, tropical storm, or perhaps even hurricane. The odds are almost always right there next to that region of development, and for example, in this case, that's a 30% chance of development over the next 7 days. Here at Fox 13, we like to put that in a little box with bold font to kind of get things across very easily. When you're reading the outlook, as those odds go up from 40 to 60% and then 70 to 99, the colors change. We go to a orange color to indicate that, hey, those odds are growing. We're getting close to that 40 to 60% range. And then as we get into that 70 to 99% range where things look very likely to form, that's when we bust out the red colored crayon. You'll notice the red X's and the red circles. That means something is very close to developing, whether that is a subtropical, tropical depression, tropical storm, maybe a named storm. We've gone through it all, so as the colors change, just note that they get a little bit darker and closer to red as the odds continue to rise of formation. Now, it's going to be a little bit until we have likely that red coloring, because again, the first named storm of the season typically forms on the 20th, and as we look at enhanced satellite imagery, the ITCZ zone, this is a convergence of trade winds right down here near the equator, that propagates north and south, and as this makes its way farther to the north, where all that thunderstorm activity is, that's when it will start to enter into the main development region, and the odds to see something try and form out there, especially something stronger, will start to rise. But for now, that little region there I've outlined and shown with the arrows is a bit far south. So we're mainly going to be looking closer to home for the next few weeks. And as we look at the amount of wind shear in the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, and out there in the Atlantic, you also see that there's more than just one factor working against any systems trying to form right now. High wind shear is not good for the development of tropical depressions, tropical storms, and because that's in place right now and a lot of it is out there, it's going to also make anything trying to develop over the next week or so have a very difficult time. It just goes to show that as we get later on in the season, that wind shear starts to die down, that ITCZ zone starts to slide farther to the north, we'll start to see the odds of tropical development begin to rise. And they almost seasonally always do, especially as we head into the middle and beginning of September. Now, the first named storm by year. This has been interesting because the past few years, we've started the season off earlier than the June 20th date that the first storm typically forms around. That's it from an average from 1991 to 2020. Our season, as far as the first named storm is concerned, started as early as June 2nd and 4th over the last 3 years. And then 2021 and 2020, we got off to a very quick start. May 16th, we saw our first named storm. That would be tomorrow. We're not expecting anything like that. I think it's looking like if anything's going to develop, we would at least have to wait until the end of May at the earliest. We're going to continue monitoring the signs. But again, just remember, early season systems and storms are typically on the weaker side. June only makes up about 6% of all activity on the year combined. And it's not until August, September, and October that those odds begin to skyrocket. And as I pointed out, that's when we typically also get our stronger storms. Here is the 2025 Atlantic storm naming list. See if your name is on there. Nash has been snubbed again. I mentioned this yesterday, but Nestor is on there this time. Olga is on the list. Aaron, some interesting additions there. Dexter and Barry. Any storm that does enough damage or is a prolific enough storm, they can retire that storm. So these names don't reappear in the cycle. I believe right now it's every 6 years that we see this storm list get replaced. It's 5 or 6. I'd have to double check. I believe it's 6. And that just means that many years down the line, we could see some of these names again. In fact, typically the early storms that aren't exactly on the stronger side, we see those names fairly often as they keep repeating because they're not very strong often. So before the break, I did ask if you could guess the SkyCam, and if you guessed St. Paul, Minnesota, you were correct. Now, this was a tough one, but the reason I chose this camera is because there's currently a tornado watch in effect for that area. In fact, a lot of Minnesota under an active tornado watch until 8 p.m. Look at the spin here from that surface low, just churning those thunderstorms, that kind of pinwheel look. I'm going to put it into motion again and get a better idea of what I'm talking about. That's what's fueling all those strong thunderstorms that are already beginning to rumble through Minneapolis and are going to continue that track farther east into Chicago next. The severe weather outlook for today at an enhanced 3 out of 5 risk. That is for damaging straight line winds, hail, and of course the chance for tornadoes with these storms that are initially forming. The highest odds for those tornadoes extending from Chicago up through the heart of Wisconsin. Although remember, that tornado watch is still in effect for sections of Minnesota as well. Now, radar imagery in our state is nice and dry. I'm flying up to the north and west to see if anything has developed in that area just yet. Minneapolis with some thunderstorms, but down south of that mark, not seeing very much, extending down the Mississippi River Valley. Maybe a few thunderstorms north of Memphis, but nothing particularly strong at this point in time. What's interesting is the relatively warm and humid air rolling off the Gulf is going to prime the atmosphere with a lot of storm energy heading into this evening, and that's why those higher outlooks have been issued by the Storm Prediction Center. Watch at the bottom right corner of the screen near Houston, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama as the southerly winds begin to pull in more of that moisture this evening, and that paired with the daytime heating and those high temperatures that are already above average, that's going to make all those colors on the map there turn to pinks and reds, and extreme instability is going to be in place in the atmosphere. That's what's leading to the chance for tornadoes with the very powerful updrafts that we see, and also the potential for hail moving into this evening. Here's Futurecast with the Fox model. The storms we're seeing right now zoom through Minnesota and then backbuild down into Chicago over several of the Great Lakes, and then eventually all the way to Cleveland as we look toward 4 a.m. into the morning time. It's going to be a noisy start to the day for them, and I think unfortunately a lot of folks could be waking up earlier than they expect. Moving into tomorrow, that severe weather threat shifts farther south and actually grows. We're looking at the intersection there of Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, perhaps northwest Tennessee. Middle Tennessee also getting in on the act with a 3 out of 5 outlook in place for Nashville. And storms tomorrow, looking ahead with the Fox model, also looking on the stronger side. That bowing shape that, I'll go back and outline it. The way that these storms are in a line, almost like a reverse C, to me indicates the potential for very strong wind storms that are going to be pushing through the area. Damaging straight line winds, of course, a main concern for that spot, but also the chance for a few isolated embedded tornadoes as that front slides through Middle Tennessee, the Ohio Valley, then eventually the Mississippi River Valley. I'm going to flip it back now to a familiar sight, a live view here from the University of South Florida. Temperatures still in the upper 80s, but likely feeling like the mid to low 90s with that heat and humidity. Not a cloud in sight, maybe way out there in the distance on this camera. When we get back, we'll take one last look at your local forecast, your 7-day, and a quick viewer photo. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Now, this is one of the most Florida things I think that was sent to me this week that I've seen. This is a sunrise that features a dolphin, also in perfect conformity with the amazing clouds in the background. This was sent in by Philip Metlin. He sends us some great shots here. And just off of Palm Beach, a dolphin leaping out of the water. The water's not particularly restless at this time. And typically a silver lining is what we get in the afternoon with the clouds. Not necessarily a silver lining here, more of a pink color because of the sunrise. Again, thank you so much for sending in this great shot. And if you have any great sunrise and sunset photos moving forward, please send those on in. A live view from Longboat Key. Our beach is not half bad right now either. Mostly sunny skies looking due west. In fact, completely sunny on this camera. I've been hard-pressed to find very many clouds on any of our different views that I've shown in this little newscast so far. Marine forecast for today has held up. Winds have been light. They're going to be relatively light tomorrow, so I don't see this getting much worse than maybe 1 to 2 foot Gulf wave heights. Light chop in our bays and inland waters as well, with the wind tracker not doing anything crazy over the next 48 hours or so. Keeping between about 5 to 15 miles per hour sustained, and winds mainly out of the north as we get into the afternoon. Now, Futurecast here, bringing the heat through Saturday, as warm as 93 degrees as we get into the afternoon. That humidity is not going to be going anywhere anytime soon, and unfortunately, that means also with the high humidity, with the heat, it's going to feel very hot, and we're not going to have very much of a break into the afternoon. With regard to any rain shower chances, the next 5 days of rainfall looking awfully barren here on Futurecast, and our 7-day forecast not looking any better. If you're in the market for at least a passing shower or two, I think we stay with mostly sunny skies, maybe a few more clouds to end the work week and enter into the weekend. Otherwise, our long stretch of heat will stay with us for the next 7 to perhaps 10 days of the forecast, with no immediate change up in our weather pattern in sight. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to SkyTower Weather Now. Tomorrow, I'll be back at it with a brand new forecast. We'll have a look at what's happening in other parts of the country. I think it's going to be very active down in the Ohio Valley and along the Mississippi River Valley, where powerful thunderstorms and even the chance for tornadoes will persist. I'll have updates on that situation as well as the next best chance we can hopefully see some showers. I'll see you back tomorrow at 3. Well, happy Thursday, and thank you so much for tuning in from wherever you're tuning in from. I'm Fox 13 meteorologist Nash Rhodes, and welcome to SkyTower Weather Now. We talk about your local forecast right here in Florida, as well as some active weather that's happening in other parts of the country. The big story today being powerful thunderstorms that are going to be moving through the Midwest. Those are already underway. Even over my shoulder, you can see that red coloring there. That's a tornado watch that's extending across Minnesota and will eventually reach into portions likely of Wisconsin as we head throughout the day. Already at least one observed tornado from the thunderstorms that have fired just an hour ago, and we'll dive into that here coming up. But I do want to jump right into our local forecast because I know that's what's on a lot of folks' mind. The big change up has been the rain that we started this week off with. The rainfall accumulation over the last 7 days here on your screen. A lot of us picking up roughly 2 inches of rain. That's that lighter blue coloring right as it transitions into purple. St. Pete, Tampa, Winter Haven, Sarasota. How about Sebring with about 5 inches of rainfall or more over the last week? This is much needed rain because a lot of our area has been under drought. And just today, that new drought index has just come out, so I want to dive into that as well. Here is the before and after. 1 week ago there in the left side of the screen, the current drought monitor updated on the right. Sarasota County now dropped to a severe drought monitor. Bigger changes as you go farther north into Hillsborough, Pinellas, even Polk County now dipping into the moderate drought category, which is good. It wasn't a drought-busting series of rain, but at least that 2 inches is basically what we can expect for the entirety of May. May averaging around 2.5 inches over all of the days combined, and we still have about 2.5 weeks to go. Those 3 days spread among Saturday, Sunday, and Monday for the most part here in Tampa. We got 1.62 inches of rain on Monday combined. That is enough for a daily record. Actually, 1.62, the confirmed number there on the screen. That beat the record set back in 1951 of 1.44 inches. The 3-day total again being at 2.39, and that comes awfully close to the May average here in Tampa of 2.6 inches of rain. We'll likely surpass that if we can get just a few more showers toward the end of the month, because I think over the next week, we're going to be hard pressed to find any rainfall across the southeast United States. We have a bit of a dry spell on the way, and that's unfortunate because it's also corresponding with some very warm temperatures and a high pressure system that's not going to cool us off very much, not just with rain chances, but also with cloud cover for at least the next few days of your forecast. Here's what we've got with our 4-box live camera network out in downtown Tampa. Raymond James Stadium, Steinbrenner Field, the difference from today's view versus yesterday, just hardly any clouds on any of our cameras. As we look every which direction, we are completely dry across central Florida and a view of the beach. A lot of folks out there even enjoying the water right now. I think if I look to the bottom right of my screen, sometimes harder to tell, but some folks might be out there trying the water. It's relatively warm, closer to 80 degrees there right along the Gulf Coast. More folks were out there playing volleyball just about an hour ago. The heat is for real. I don't know if you've stepped outside this afternoon, especially over the last hour or so. We've really ramped up those temperatures. Here's how high we've been so far. 92 there in Wesley Chapel stands out to me. Lake Placid, Sebring, frostproof 92 and 93 degrees for an afternoon high temperature. Some of these are unofficial and could be even a pinch higher than what you see on the screen. Clearwater at 90, Newport Richey at 88, Brooksville at 91. Right this second, our sensors aren't too far off from our afternoon highs. In fact, some of those highs are rolling in right now. Sebring at 93 still, Bradenton 93 just being reported, Sarasota 85, Brandon 90, and Tampa just updating to 89 degrees. That's a brand new update there, so still getting warmer. And our friends farther to the north are also experiencing this heat wave here. Tallahassee, Gainesville, Jacksonville. A big area of high pressure is still ramping up temperatures to the tune of 4, 5, maybe 6 degrees warmer than what we experienced for highs yesterday. And that high pressure system will be cranking up the heat for the next 2 to 3 days of your local forecast. All those days with mostly sunny skies, similar to the icon there on your screen. And just your reminder, with the lack of cloud cover, because we have had at least clouds to block out that sunshine and give us some temporary shade from Mother Nature, the UV index is going to be on the high side for the next few days. So just to make sure you're taking that into account, especially if you're going to be on a spot like the beach where there's not a ton of shade to go around. If you don't bring the umbrella, make sure you're applying that sunscreen regularly, because unfortunately burns can take place in as little as 15 minutes or so in the conditions we have at hand. The 24-hour temperature change map telling the tale of the tape. Whenever this is a nice orange or red color, you know we are warming up very quickly, and this is speaking to our warming trend all around. Even West Palm Beach and Vero Beach